CAUSENETIC podcast.
CAUSENETIC means being a person or thing that gives rise to a phenomenon that is dynamic or energized.
And we tackle topics and telling the truth.
I'm Roger Garage.
Hey, and I'm Keith Benson.
So today, our topic is the stars amongst us. Ooh, doesn't that sound so galactic and existential?
Yes.
Yes, featuring the lovely Kelsey Nelson and Howard Winchester from Learning Heroes. Welcome to the CAUSENETIC podcast, Phil.
Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate that introduction, right, Howard? That was great.
I feel like I just got inducted into the Hall of Fame or something.
Yes, or the Oscars or something.
Well, we are so excited to have you all. Just to give the folks that are listening a bit of a backstory or a connection point. So when we had the opportunity to go to the National After School Association's national conference and do a podcast there, I had the opportunity to meet the wonderful, lovely Kelsey Nelson, who was an award winner at that very event. I'll let her tell you about that because she fancy, y'all.
Right.
And we got to talking and just listening to the amazing things that they do at Learning Heroes. It was a no-brainer that we needed to have them on to talk about the good stuff that they do. So come on, Kelsey. First of all, tell us about the award you got at NAA.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. I mean, getting awarded this year at NAA in Las Vegas of all places. How cool was that?
And I had on Vegas shoes too, girl. You remember that?
You did. She had the beautiful shiny
got
shoes.
Got a special t-shirt and everything for
You look great. No, it was amazing being called a next gen winner this year. And for me, after school has always been a part of my life. I am somebody who went to about 10 after school programs just growing up. My parents always had me involved and active. And so for me, it's about giving back. A quote I live by is we stand on the shoulders of giants to whom much is given, much is required. And so that's what that award meant to me. It was just me giving back to my community. I work at so many great organizations, which has now landed me at Learning Heroes, working with my great colleague, Howard Winchester, who is on this call. But the after school part for me is what helped to define me. I connected with my counselors and my teachers, and they're the ones that always told me to believe in myself and that no one could tell me what I could not do. And especially as a Black woman, I needed to honestly constantly hear that. And so for me, after school is everything. After school programs. So getting involved with NAA and then being alongside all these other just boss people in after school and OST space, just killing it in their careers, all under 30. I'm like, our future is bright, y'all. Like, it's exciting.
I'm under 30. So
she is.
that lightning man coming. Getting up too low.
Whatever. But that is amazing. You know, I agree with you, Kelsey. People cannot underestimate the power, right, that our out of school time professionals have in the lives of our young people. They spend so much time with them. They expose them. They get to build those great relationships with them. Like you said, they get to speak into those young people's lives. Like I'm with you. I was definitely an after school kind of kid, latchkey kind of kid. And if it wasn't for that extra set of adults, right, just pouring into you and helping you not stay in trouble and get in fights after school right there in the corner of the playground,
we got kids, millions of kids across the country. They in the after school program. They ain't nobody fight.
No.
Ain't nobody. That's just
it helped me then. It was just me. I don't know.
I'm sorry. This is a positive show, so I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna try to keep it right. So Howard,
what out of trouble.
Howard, what tell us about you, brother? What is it that you do with Learning Heroes?
Yeah, so thank you guys for having me on. So I'm the communications manager at Learning Heroes. So I kind of work with all things communication, from social to digital media to branding and advertising and marketing and everything that you could think communication touches. I work with. And I also work closely with Kelsey when we discuss partnerships with outside partners or amazing podcast opportunities like this, where we're just able to really get our message and our vision out to the public, just to kind of let everyone know what Learning Heroes is and kind of what we stand for. Our mission is really helping parents get a clear and accurate picture of their child's holistic development, right? So that's the academics, the social, the emotional, all of that, because, a lot of parents, they have I'm not going to say misguided view of their child's academics, but they do have an unclear picture of how their child is doing in school academically and everything. So we try to work with partners and national partners, local partners to kind of help bridge that gap of understanding for parents.
I love that.
Awesome.
I love that. That's excellent.
What is it? I mean, so you have the message. A lot of times what I find is that those so folks who work like hands-on with young people, they understand the impact because they're right there working with them. But then in your role is in that administrative role, but yet it is to tell the story of what Learning Heroes is all about. I mean, how do you see your role playing in the impact side of things as it relates to after school?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so for me particularly, I think the joy of being in communications is storytelling, right? Like, it's being able to take something that, like, a lot of our resources and everything is like based in research. Like, we do so much research year after year after year. Like, I think we've done like 7 years of research, right? And the average parent is not about to sit there and like read through like this 50-page deck of like letters and everything, but all of those numbers, all of those letters, all of those words, they tell a story. And that's where I come in, working closely with Kelsey and our other colleagues to be able to take the data, take the research, take the insights, and turn that into a story and turn that into something that's digestible for parents and families, because we want to make sure that we're meeting families and parents where they are, right? Like, let's not just assume that, because we know the education jargon and we know, what OST stands for. Like, I say OST, but the person down the street, my neighbor, she said, "Oh, that's the lady who watch all the kids." But because even though she's, that's her jargon and that's kind of her lane, that doesn't mean that what she needs and what she kind of wants in an out of school, after school program isn't aligned with what we're trying to say. So, I think being able to help tell the story to parents and families, it just brings me so much joy and why I do what I do at Learning Heroes.
That makes all the sense in the world. So Kelsey, tell us about some of the things that you guys do. I know you have a summer parent, like teacher planning tool. You have a teacher letter, all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah. So what we do at Learning Heroes, honestly, we do a lot. That's what brought me to Learning Heroes. I just celebrated my 1 year here, and I'm already looking forward to many, many more years.
Yay, happy anniversary.
Thank you. But Howard touched on it. We do a lot of research. Essentially, we listen to parents. And when we say parents, we mean any caring adult in a child's life, right? So that could be an aunt or uncle, a cousin, a brother or a sister, but whoever's kind of providing that guidance. And we listen to them because we need to know their needs to create these tools and resources that best fit them. As Howard said, we meet parents exactly where they are. So we create a bunch of free tools and resources based off of that knowledge that we're hearing from parents. And we do this continually throughout the year and do it through multiple years because things are always changing.
Yeah.
And so these tools that we have, they're catered to parents. And then I work a lot as a senior manager of external relations on partnerships. So making sure that we're not only creating these if no one's using them, because then we're doing all this work and then it's just sitting there. So I make sure it actually gets on the ground to parents and families to actually use these tools and resources. So a lot of what I do is connecting with parent groups on the ground. We connect with school districts, national organizations, as Howard said, such as our summer campaign is in partnership with Univision, the National Summer Learning Association, National PTA. So these are the groups that we're working with all the time, hearing from them as well to create these tools and resources and get it out into the community. Our summer campaign this year, which summer is almost here. We're excited for it, especially after the last couple of years being in the pandemic.
Real, like back to summer.
Like a real summer. Yes, like a real summer. We're having this year, but it's called Summer Remix. And we're calling it Summer Remix because it's about mixing it up this summer, right? Of course, you always want the academics to play a role, but as Howard said, that social emotional learning aspect is really what parents are caring about. They want that quality time, right, with their child, with their children this summer. It's going to mean so much more to them this summer. And so Summer Remix, it's a free campaign, which we're going to be hoping that everybody uses in their community and in their schools. We're also presenting this soon at the National PTA Conference, but it has kind of three main steps. The first is to review key skills. The second is to replay what matters most. And then the third is to reflect on progress. So the first one about reviewing key skills, that's when you as a parent or you as a family member, you're really just looking at your observations, right? And you're looking at what your child is learning, what they're good at, maybe what some of the challenges are. One of our most popular tools on our website is actually called the Readiness Check. It's super fun. Adults, I encourage you to actually try it. But our readiness check.
Don't do that. The readiness check. Well,
you have to try it.
Never mind. I'm gonna take it for my baby. Never mind.
Got one left in.
Never mind. I'm gonna take it.
Keith is like, I'm done.
Yeah. But literally, the readiness check is such a great tool. Like I've worked at Learning Heroes going on 3 years now, and I remember that show, like, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader?
Yes.
Are you smarter than a fifth grader, Keith?
I took the fifth grade math questions, and I was like, "Are they changing math?" Because
it humbles you. It humbles you.
In the fifth grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The readiness check, just to kind of touch in, Kelsey, the readiness check is our anchor tool, right? It's completely free, and we believe all of our resources are free, and all our resources are bilingual, so they're in both English and in Spanish.
I love it.
Got to use that E word, that equity word, okay?
Equity word. That's right. That's right.
And so when parents and caregivers, when their child takes the readiness check, essentially what it does is it's about 3 to 5 questions in math and reading, and they take the questions, and then after the child is done, the parent is presented with tons of resources to kind of let like, okay, your child is on grade level when reading, or isn't on grade level with math, and if they aren't, here are a bunch of resources to kind of help push them along. And we always encourage the parents to do the readiness check at different points in the year. So right now, of course, we're doing it in summer, but we have it where at the beginning of back to school. If you're going to 5th grade, how about you take the 4th grade readiness check just to make sure, like, are you ready? Is it ready for 5th grade?
Right.
What can you do to kind of, help prepare them?
I love that. Before we talked about summer learning loss, right? But I think the pandemic has obliterated the idea of summer learning loss. It's just learning loss, right? And so this readiness check really allows you to kind of recalibrate and check in with your child, see what they need. And the fact that it gives you the resources, because as a parent, sometimes okay, my baby needs help in this, my baby needs help in that, but you don't necessarily know where to go to get it. And you don't look, that's not the math they taught me in 5th grade. So I can't teach you so where can I go and get the math you learning and help them? I love that concept of the readiness assessment.
And it's easy to use. Like, you can use it on your phone, on the computers, you can use it anywhere. And that's why it's super quick. And we say it's like a game. I definitely recommend everyone go try it again. It's available on our website at
I'm gonna take it if I'm 5th grade ready.
You should try it, and it's for.
I'm gonna try it. You should try it too.
Yeah, I'd have graduated. Ain't no need of me stepping back at this point.
That sounds like you scared to me. Sounds like you scared.
So look, Learning Heroes, you guys were founded to help parents most effectively advocate on behalf of their child for their educational success. And we have, so you were saying, like, I look for this in my babies. Yeah. But, like, all parents are not there to be able to engage with their child in that way. How do you guys help support parents to be able to advocate on behalf of their child?
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, that's where our tools and resources come in. Because again, we're listening to these communities. And so again, what I do every day, I'm on Zoom calls, I'm in the community, and I'm listening to exactly what these parents need. And I'm able to take it back to our larger team. And then we're able to kind of reconvene. And we actually get to tailor tools for specific communities. And so we've done this kind of throughout the country. So Howard talked about our tools being bilingual. We've got to work with a group called Great Minnesota Schools in Minnesota. And we actually got to tailor tools for their exact community and create tools in the Hmong and Somali languages because that's who they're serving. And so these tools are actually, they were able to take these to the teachers and say, like, this is how my child is doing. An example of that is actually our summer parent teacher planning tool that we have. That's part of our summer remix campaign, where at the end of the school year, the teacher is able to put the feedback, right, that they see from a child. They're able to give this to the parent, and the parent's also able to put some feedback for the teacher on there, right? Because the teacher sees one thing in the classroom, but as a parent at home, you're also seeing another thing. And so then what are you guys doing? You're working together. You're building trust, and trust and teamwork are two things that we really care a lot about at Learning Heroes, because they're really all about the parents and teachers working hand in hand together to get a child to where they need to be. So that's kind of how we're able to tailor the tools. We co-brand different materials because we also know when you see a logo that you know. So I'm a Boys and Girls Club kid. I also went to YMCA as a kid. When you see a logo that you know, you're more likely to trust it, right? Because I know the people behind it. I know the people behind the branding. And then we also work with them to kind of tailor the language for different parents and communities and families. And so we've done this, for example, in Baltimore with the elementary school called Hamden Elementary School. They don't want us to use the word parents just because their structure kind of was not your typical two-parent household. So they just wanted us to use families throughout our materials. So we said, okay, no problem. Put their logo on materials, went back and tailored it and put families, and they were able to actually use our back to school tools to hand out through their listserv to the parents in their community. So this is why we always say, like, not one tool fits everyone. It's one tool fits one, right? One size fits one. And that's kind of why we have to go out into, my job is getting to these communities and partners and seeing what they exactly need. And so everything that's on our website, again, it's from listening to you all out there. We're not just, taking our own knowledge and just thinking that we know everything, because we don't. And it's always constantly evolving and changing. And this is why, especially working with Howard, we have social media toolkits that we also get out into the community to also make sure that it's getting on the ground, our tools and resources. And we're also getting feedback that way digitally as well. And so this is exactly kind of how we put our work into practice, our work in action. We've actually got to work with some great organizations like Howard, if you want to touch on what we did with the Colorado Education Initiative, creating and tailoring tools to them specifically.
I love concierge service. This feels so judgy. I love it.
Concierge service. I like that.
It's so bougie. I love it.
Trademark that.
It's so concierge. That's so on trend now, Keith. More than fishing. It really is.
Oh, no.
More than fishing.
It's sometimes, it's a whole lot of fishing.
Not fishing. And not to eat it, but that's another podcast.
But yeah, like to Kelsey's point, we listen to, like, I think that's how we kind of help parents advocate for themselves, is by listening to them. One thing that Kelsey mentioned, I'll have to reiterate it, is like something that we live by is it's not one size fits all, it's one size fits one. And when you think about that, it can come off like, oh, well, if I have like 50 audiences, it can be maybe daunting to try to do something for all 50 of them, right? But when you really sit and think, like, what are the general needs for the community, right? So like, as in the Black community, in the Latino community, in the, Asian Pacific Islander community, and so on and so forth, there are general needs that they have. But then once you kind of break it down to it on a more granular level, like, okay, for the Black parents in Baltimore, they may need something a little bit different than Black parents in Atlanta, Black parents in Texas, right? And so being able to really be nimble and malleable to be able to work with the parents on the ground and the organizations on the ground is really, I think, why we are so successful in the work that we do with parents, is because we're able and we're willing to say, okay, you know what? Like to Kelsey's point, if you guys don't use parents, like everywhere else where this resource is at, is going to say parents. But for you guys, if this is what you need, then this is how we're going to do it. And, we did a project with the Colorado Education Initiative last year where they took all of our resources and we literally co-branded and customized each of them for the Colorado community, so, and like Colorado is a very distinct, geographical place. So the needs of their families are completely different than anywhere else in the country. So we're able to take our anchor tools like the Image Check, like the parent-teacher planning tool, like another resource that we have, which is Path to Success, which is geared towards parents of high schoolers, and being able to really utilize resources that are specific for them and the needs of that community, I think is really how we succeed.
I think that you guys should add to your portfolio teaching other places that it is okay to be concierge, right? Like, so I know that many times we do like this cookie cutter, try to do the one size fits all for efficiency, right?
Mm-hmm.
But do we have to do that at the sacrifice of effectiveness? And the fact that you guys go face forward and embrace the fact that when you've seen one, right? And there are some common themes, but even in that, there is no one population that's just homogeneous, right? Like everybody does the same thing.
Right.
That is the beauty in the space and really living out this whole idea of equity, right? Like, no, I'm gonna interface with you the way you need it, not the way that this person over here needed it, just because that's easier for me and I don't really have time to figure it out the way you need it.
So what is it that you all do with the Leadership Training Institute?
Yeah, so our Leadership Training Institute is actually going to be brand new and launched by our colleague, Dr. Eyal Bergman, which we're super excited about. So this is actually something that we're going to actually help train district leaders, right, in schools, which is really exciting. And kind of going back to our point before, and this is one of the great things I think about Learning Heroes, the research that we have, we also don't keep it. We put this out into the field. So not only are we seeing what parents, want and need nationally, but we're sharing this with everybody else so they can also see. And that's something that we love when organizations come to us. But we're also listening to parents and teachers and principals, right? So those three different groups. And a lot of times you guys probably hear these groups often pitted against each other when, again, they usually want the same thing, right? It's just sometimes it's a different way of going there. And what's one thing we hear from parents? We feel like the school's not listening to us. And then parents and teachers sometimes feel like their messages are getting lost in translation. And so I think at Learning Heroes and what this institute will help to do is kind of to help bridge that gap. And our biggest thing is really focusing on family engagement. Family engagement, I'm sure, as you all know, is so huge. And again, it's not just parent engagement, it's engaging that whole family in the school learning process. And that's something that we're big on. This is why we hired Dr. Eyal Bergman. He has almost been with us, I believe, a year. And this is kind of like one of his babies. And so there's going to be lots more details to come that we'll be putting out there. But again, any school districts that are out there that are interested, we would love, love, love to have you a part of the work that we do. He actually just authored a great report called Unlocking the How, and it's all centered around not just building family engagement, but how to build good family engagement in schools and communities. And so, we don't just say this is what you should do, but we also show you how to do it and show you examples of school districts that have been doing it really well.
See, Keith, so you see this concept, instead of you trying to figure out and wonder what shoes to buy me, just ask me. I will give you the data you need to buy me the shoe.
Data. What you meant was cash. Right? I mean, because that's the only
potato. We're trying to get to the shoes. We're trying to get to the shoes.
Okay, you give me the cash, and we'll. Wait
a minute. That's not what Kelsey said. That's not what she said.
Well,
that's not what she said.
Exactly, because what she said and you said that had nothing to do with each other. Data and cash, that ain't got nothing to do with each other. So, I mean, family engagement is so important. I mean, what is it that you can share with us are key things that make sure that families do when they're going into a new school year? What is it that they can do to, make sure they connect with that teacher?
Yeah, so I think two of the big things around family engagement, two words that we're really pushing is trust and teamwork, right? And you can build trust and build and amplify teamwork through a number of ways. With one of the ways that we have, one of the resources that we use at Learning Heroes and we push out around to that point, Keith, at the beginning of the school year is, as we mentioned, taking the readiness check, so that you and your child is prepared. You're going into the school year knowing, okay, I know that my child is here. I know that my child needs support here. And these are this is the things that I need, right? So now you have the knowledge. So then it's like, okay, how do I communicate that to my child's teacher? Well, that's the thing for you. And we call it the Dear Teacher letter. So if you're familiar with like Mad Libs, it's kind of that same concept where it's a letter that is kind of pre-populated and we just kind of allow parents and families to fill in the necessary pieces. So like, my child's name is Howard. Howard loves to do blah, 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 blah. Howard needs support in blah, 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 blah. And these are the goals that I have that, we have for Howard for this school year. And then, at the end, it gives like, to communicate more, to get in contact with more, this is how you can reach me. And just literally like introducing not only your child, but introducing yourself and your family to that child's teacher, so that from the beginning, everyone is aware and everyone's on the same page of what the child needs and how to best make that happen. And that's where the building the trust and building the teamwork go hand in hand. And I think that's just one example of a plethora of ways that you can kind of help build that with parents.
It sounds so basic, but like that basic one sheet. I know I do something like that with new staff, called All About Me. It's just like you got a cheat sheet of sorts that at any given time you can come back to refer to make sure that you're giving that person something that they like versus just something that they want.
Jules was on my All About Me sheet.
You are, okay, yeah.
You did not. We're not telling that story.
You know, you are correct. I did.
He did not. But that is an excellent way, especially for some parents who, for whatever reason, they feel inadequate themselves, even as adults in the educational system, right? Like for lots of parents, that is very intimidating, and they don't necessarily know how to interface with school personnel and with teachers. And there may be some trepidation, like, what if I don't write the letter? Like, what if you write a letter to the teacher and the grammar's not right? Like, you feel ways, right?
Exactly.
But having this tool where you just fill in and you get to what's most important, which is describing what your student needs and taking the rest of that stuff out of the way, that is amazing.
I think love about that from a day camp. So, day camp is huge with the YMCA, and what we get is we get a child all day long for about 8 to 10 weeks, and we don't know about some things until a situation comes up. Like, man, if you had that dear teacher, dear counselor, in this case, letter that parents could just fill in the blank. You know what? I might tell our team.
We need to tell our team.
Please spread it. Please spread it.
You don't, you scared of spiders? That's why you ran away from me.
Right. And now we're thinking that something is wrong.
We done lost the kid.
No, like parents with some of that just, and because that's a basic letter. We're not talking about you got to write a dissertation.
Oh, yeah.
It's
so simple and so easy. And I think to your point, like, we never want the first interaction with the teacher to be, when there's a problem at school or when there's something wrong, because that breaks the trust already early. So now with this letter, you're starting this communication early. And then for a teacher, if you have 30 kids in the class, you know exactly who's in your classroom and then their family. And I think knowing who's in your classroom, knowing their family, that means so much more, because that way that child can bring their whole self to their classroom and their authentic self. And you know who's sitting there. And I think the great thing about the Dear Teacher letter is that it was so popular and really well received that we also created a summer version of this called Dear OST Summer Program Leader Letter. That's part of our Summer Remix campaign. So same thing, obviously, with the same thought, where the summer program leader gets to know exactly who that child is that's coming to their summer program. And so we were actually excited to kind of reimagine this letter. And as you said, it's so easy. You're just filling in the blanks. Because a lot of times I think people think that parents don't want to talk to the teacher, but sometimes they just don't know where to start. So this letter just kind of makes it a little bit easier, right? Because you have something that's already kind of pre-populated, and then you just get to individualize it for you and your child.
I love that. That's
you guys have just a ton of resources. We've talked about several of them. Before we end, can you guys tell everybody where you can find this information?
Yeah, so you can get all of these resources and more. So you got the Summer Remix resource, you got the Summer Parent Teacher Planning Tool, you got the Dear Program Leader Letter, you got the Readiness Check. You can find all of these resources at bealearninghero.org. And again, as we mentioned, all of these resources are free and they are all bilingual in both English and Spanish.
I'm going to take the readiness test, and I'm going to have to borrow that Dear Teacher one too. Like,
I need to write a Dear Teacher one for you. I'm going to. This is what you can expect from Keith. I can fill that out.
Yeah. You know what?
Fill that out. Expect that he's going to eat fish that he caught. He's going to call more rocks. And I'm going to buy shoes.
Buy shoes.
Yep.
Buy shoes.
From brands that I recognize and trust.
There you go. Trust is very important.
Hey, look. Hey, thank you all for listening to CAUSENETIC.
On this episode called Stars Amongst Us, featuring Kelsey Nelson and Howard Winchester from Learning Heroes.
Hey, subscribe and listen to us weekly.
And don't be shy, give us a 5-star review.
Hey, as always,
Be dynamic.
be phenomenal.
Be cosmetic.